Want to give a quick shout out to all my patrons. Thank you so much for the continued support. And I am done. Okay, so I just finished listening to Age of Assassins by R.J. Barker. This is book 1 of the Wounded Kingdom trilogy, and I want to give you my unedited thoughts upon finishing this book, which was just right now. So I really want to give this book a higher score than I am, and I'm really sad to say this, but I'm only going to give this book a 2 out of 5 stars. And I say that I'm let down on that, not just because I always want to read 5-star books, but because my expectations were so high given this author. Now, R.J. Barker is the author of one of my all-time favorite trilogies, The Tide Child. And I gave each of those books a 5 out of 5 score. I just absolutely adore these. And I thought, look, if I love these books, then surely I'm going to like the trilogy that he's more popularly known for, the one that came out before The Tide Child. And I gave it a shot, and kind of out of the gate, I wasn't feeling it. And I kept kind of hoping that it would get better and better as it went along, as The Tide Child did. The first book in The Tide Child, The Bone Ships, I think I would have given a 3 out of 5 for the first half of the book, but then everything kind of turns around and it gets so much better. And this one just never did. In fact, it got more dull as it went along. So, I'm going to go into the review and talk about what I liked and didn't like about this book, but I will say that, I was really, really excited to read the next book by this author. The Tide Child's done, and he's now writing a new series called Gods of the Weirdwood. Now, I don't know if that's the title of the series or the first book, but my optimism for this book is still rather high. Now, it's been dimmed a little bit, but I am still excited because of how much I love The Tide Child, and that ultimately I think he got to be a better writer as he went along. So let's hope that trajectory keeps going when this book comes out on June 27th, and you can bet that I'm going to be reading and reviewing this and coming out as soon as I can. I already have the book. It got sent to me early. Thank you to the publisher, but I'll get that review out, a few days before the 27th. So let's talk a little bit about what this book's all about. So as you could tell, this book is called Age of Assassins. This is an assassin story, but like most fantasy assassin story, it doesn't involve a lot of assassinations. I'm finding that to be some weird trope about fantasy. You have, Assassin's Apprentice in the realm of the Elderlings. It did the same thing here. There's a very, very, very small amount of assassinations. I won't say any more than that, but it is not what this book is about. Ultimately, this book is about this master assassin and her apprentice, this young boy who is trying to train up to be a wonderful assassin in his own right, and they get contracted to do the opposite of assassinating. They get contracted to stop an assassin from killing the queen's son, and that's the story. It doesn't take a lot of twists from that point. That's the whole story. So most of the story is ultimately, it's a mystery novel. And, I'm not a big fan of mystery novels. Now, I say that, and everything I say, there are things that would prove me wrong. I just finished reading the first book in the Empire of the Wolf series, Justice of Kings, and that's a mystery novel, and I couldn't say enough positive things about that book. But it just didn't work here because the writing wasn't what I come to expect from R.J. Barker. It was just okay. But the slow plot, this felt, even though there were some brutal elements to this book, it kind of felt like a YA story, which I'm not a big fan of, with this slow unraveling of the story. And it never had these epic heights to the story. I mean, that's, I think, ultimately one of the big things I liked about Justice of Kings was it did have this epic scope and this kind of promise of bigger things to come. This one did not. In fact, I think this whole trilogy is ultimately, at the end of the day, going to be about, saving this one kid, because we didn't, get a lot of resolution here. And, there are some bigger things going on in the background. One big revelation here, my favorite part of the book, which comes about the 2/3 of the mark in here. But still, and then it just kind of waned off again. So, yeah, the story is just so-so, absolutely not like an amazing thing for me. So, the world building. Now, I think the world building here it was good, not great. I mean, this is just your standard medieval setting in a castle and the surrounding lands, a very narrow scope to the story. I mean, everything takes place in this one location and everything like right next to it. With not a lot of imagination put into it. There's not these, really mythical elements to this. It's just your standard medieval castle setting. And so the world didn't enrapture me. I'm certainly not going, it just gets mixed into the hundreds of other books that I've read in the same setting without really differentiating it from anything else. You're not going to like oogle over some map here and be really obsessed with it. It's just, kind of a bland standard fare, which so much of this story really is. The characters, you have much of the same. You've got this kind of, young adult kind of protagonist that is, it kind of feels like this hybrid between this mystery story and a coming of age story. And, again, coming of age stories, they can be good, but they need incredible writing to make them good. And this one just didn't have it, which is weird because I've praised the Tide Child in the writing quality and the prose of that writing style extremely high. Now, I've also heard from some people that have said that they've read Tide Child and been like, Matt, what are you talking about? It's just standard fare. But, I'm not, I have a decent amount of subscribers and a lot of people follow me and listen to what I have to say, but I wouldn't say I'm like some expert. I'm a total amateur, just like you are at reading these books. I don't really know what good or bad prose is. I know what I like. I know what works for me. I know that this one didn't have what Tide Child had. The complexity wasn't there. It didn't like ooze out of the page. It just felt standard. And I don't think the difference here is that I listened to this from an audiobook and I read the other books. I'm pretty good at differentiating between those because ultimately, I do like audiobooks a little bit less than when I physically read a book. But I also think that I'm choosing to read books that aren't, the ones that I'm really excited to read, I'll pick up in physical form. So that's what it is. So I already mostly touched on the writing style. Don't need to go too much into that depth. Just standard fare. And ultimately my enjoyment, which is the most critical component to a book for me, just wasn't, huge. It was just so-so. So, yeah, would I recommend this book to people? Not really. I don't know who would really like this book unless you're not like a major fantasy fan. If you're, I don't know. I mean, certainly people like it. Certainly most people like it. I mean, the rating on Goodreads is decent. I think it hovers around a 4, which means a vast majority of people preferred this book to not preferring it. So I'm definitely in the minority here. But I don't know that I'm as good of a reviewer as to come out and say like, who is the type of person that will like this book? Because I know it's not me. I know it's not a lot of the people that follow my channel. Because ultimately, I think a lot of people follow my channel because they end up finding my tastes and aligning with them and saying, let me follow Matt and go along with that. So yeah, this is one to skip. I'm certainly going to dip out of the series here. There's too many wonderful books to read for me to keep reading in a series that I'm not super feeling. But onwards and upwards with R.J. Barker. I am very much still looking forward to Gods of the Weirdwood. But if that one's not good, then I am going to feel like the Tide Child was the exception to the R.J. Barker rule. So a lot of my feelings on R.J. Barker are really going to come down to that next book and how good that is. But fingers crossed that that one really knocks it out of the park and I can get back on the R.J. Barker hype train. So I'm going to finish it up there. Thank you so much for watching this whole review. And as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to my patrons with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier patrons, Anna, Ben, Brian, CJ, Donut, Darren, Jamie, Maria, Michael Sugarman, My Book is Lit, Nev's Book Channel, Romeo Mike, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L., and Sky.